In that case, it goes on. It gives me great pleasure that we can move on to the main part of tonight's meeting. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce someone who a few of us will recognise from our district conference down in Cornwall, probably about 4, maybe 5 years ago, was it? I think it was now. Sarah at the time was talking to us about some of her adventures around the globe, but tonight she's going to be looking a bit further afield, and it's going to time quite nicely with a talk we had a couple of weeks ago when we had the Hubble Space Telescope talk. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Sarah Begum to our meeting. So Sarah, the floor is yours.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be back here, and I've always admired the Rotary Club. I love all of you guys and what you do. You just great contributions to humanity, and you make the world a better place, and I wish everyone on this planet could be a part of the Rotary, so thank you. I'm an explorer. I'm now a space explorer. I had no idea I would be. So I started my journey traveling around the globe, living with indigenous tribes and helping to highlight the voices of these people in marginalized or unique communities on the planet. I've traversed through various terrains, jungles, mountains, deserts, caves. I'm not a great swimmer, so not the ocean so much. I love this planet so much. I love learning about people and their cultures, their different cultures. I love being nourished by the knowledge from different parts of the world. And I love seeing people come together to unite, to elevate one another. Because when we can unite, when we can dissolve our differences and come together to make something better, that's how we win. And I've always believed that. I'm a firm believer of that. So my journey started last year. Well, it started way back about 10 years ago, but that's another story. And I delivered that talk at the first Rotary talk that I did. So do you want me to give them a quick recap, Darren, or?
No, I think we'll just move on from where we were.
Very good. Okay, great. So my space journey started last year, 2020, well, January the 1st, 2020. I went to the Dalai Lama's Peace Garden in London, and I was meditating. I decided to meditate every single day from 2020. And I remember as I opened my eyes from the meditation, I saw what looked like invisible fireflies. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. And then I was meditating every single day. And 6 months before the pandemic, I wanted to do a lot of self-work and shadow work and explore the cosmos or the universe inside me and understand myself better and just become a better person, really. As soon as the pandemic hit, I wasn't really, obviously I was shocked by it, but the best way to deal with it for me was through meditation and self-work. It helped me cope so much with everything, really. And what happened was during those months, the first few months of the pandemic, I started feeling energy around my hands. And then I was told that I had developed healing powers, like Reiki powers. So I thought, okay, well, that's great. My life has turned into some sort of sci-fi movie. But healing, the ability to heal was a gift. And I started doing healing work, but in my meditations, I kept seeing space. Now, if you were present at the last talk, I remember telling the audience that a few years ago when I was in Ghana, I was an investigative journalist, and I delivered a TED talk about inventing a sustainable flying car to eliminate air pollution. Now, I decided to revive it. Well, it's developed since significantly, and I decided to use that time in the pandemic to develop that. But the more I thought about aviation, my mind kept going to space. I had no idea that they were related until I did Chris Hadfield's Space Exploration Masterclass, because he was obviously a pilot. Like many astronauts, they're pilots before they become astronauts. I thought, well, that's really interesting. So I did that masterclass. I did an aeronautical engineering course on the Harvard online, Harvard University online website. And then I I became a Space Hero Insider. Only 400 of us or so was selected from around the globe. And this is a TV show planning to send the first civilian to the ISS in 2023, I think. And I think they're going to use the the rocket from SpaceX, so probably Starship or Falcon 9. And I felt, well, this is great. I'm becoming part of the space community. But I always thought that I'd had to be a scientist or an engineer of some sort. But then I spoke to an engineer from NASA, from the JPL lab, and he said to me, "We need more communicators. What you're already doing, your background in media serves you as a very good communicator. This is how you would enter the space industry, and we're looking for more female astronauts." So I thought, okay, well, this is interesting. Because I was trying to get my head around all the universal laws and mathematical equations. And they're great, by the way. And I thought, okay, so I don't have to try to be someone else. I can just be myself, because the space industry is not just full of scientists and engineers. It needs everyone of all kinds of backgrounds and skill sets for it to thrive, just like any industry. I thought, okay, well, this is great, but I want to learn more. Do I do a PhD or what do I do? So I was looking into PhDs, and I had my heart set on Cambridge because Hawking went there. But then I thought, okay, PhD or podcast, and that's when I started the Spaced Out podcast. And my very first guest was leading space investor and influencer Dylan Taylor. And he said to me, "Sarah, the space industry will benefit with someone from your background." And at the time, everything was very early and a little bit of blur. And I was just on a journey. I just stepped into the unknown, and I didn't know where it would take me. But I've learned so much. I spoke to engineers, I've spoken to scientists, I've spoken to investors, I've spoken to people in space media. I've met so many people over the last few months. The podcast became available on 19 audio platforms, including the leading ones. And it now also features as a TV show on Space Channel in the US. And then I started on my spiritual journey. I was on a quest to understand the universal laws. So my journey started very philosophical. And what happened was it turned very scientific. And then I studied Einstein's theories, and I realized a lot of these philosophical theories and universal laws that we come across in the spiritual world or the philosophical realm can be validated in the scientific world. And so I've been understanding the origins of the Big Bang and the universe, and my mind is boggled by the unexplainable physics that started the Big Bang. So that's really exciting me. I just received a great email yesterday, which really made my day, by the way. I just wrote my first scientific article for Laboratory News as part of a special feature. And that's going to be published on the 1st of June. And they liked it so much that they're going to be featuring the podcast. Anyway, about a month or so ago, I entered a contest called Dear Moon. Now, SpaceX have partnered with a Japanese billionaire called Yukazu Mawa, and he is going to fund 12 artists to go to the moon on Starship. And I passed the initial selection. I've been selected as one of those candidates. And I'm really excited about that. My dream eventually is to go to explore space. Now, why am I focusing on space now? You're probably wondering, how is that connected to what you've been doing before? So this was the interesting part. And I didn't know until I came across the senior communications manager for ESA, which is the European Space Agency. And he said, Sarah, you need to look into Earth observation. So I did. And Earth observation, what that is basically they use satellites to gather data from different parts of the world. And they also use it to analyze climate change and the impacts of climate change on our planet. And I thought, wow, this is really interesting, but it's also very important. Why is this not featured on mainstream news? This is evidence that our planet is suffering from climate change. And that is why we are planning to send humanity to Mars. Now, if you think about Venus, Venus is a burning gas ball. It's really hot. It's uninhabitable for anything to live and thrive on Venus. So the next planet from Earth is Mars, and we're planning to get to Mars because Mars, scientists believe that Mars used to have life there. They think it does. So they want to find they want to see if they can find traces of life from the rovers that they've sent there. They've sent rovers from the US. So NASA has sent their Perseverance rover recently. The helicopter flight was successful, so they're going to be using that to see if they can find any traces of life by roaming the surface of Mars. And China have sent their rover there. The UAE have sent the Hope probe there. So you've got many nations in this space race, and they're looking for signs of life. But also, all that data will help us back on Earth prepare for our mission to go to Mars, to colonize Mars, and to have a sustainable life there for humanity, for us Earthlings. Well, we'll become Martians by then. But that is why it's so important. That this is what I realized. It's like, wow, this is interesting. So Earth observation tells me that climate change, I've always known it's real, is real, and the Earth is not flat, it is round. And we are preparing for Mars for a reason. It's not just this sci-fi dream that people think space is just, it's not priority, but actually it is, because space is the future. Space is the future of humanity. Everything happened in space. For example, the iPhone that you're carrying, or the GPS system you may have, all of that was developed and invented in the space industry before it trickled down to the rest of humanity on Earth and became valuable and useful for us to use. And that's what I've discovered. I've just discovered so much very important information that I wish everyone would know. And I'm so glad that I've been given this platform to share it with you. So space exploration also, space tourism is going to be developing a lot in the next few years. Right now, the space industry is growing exponentially. So we are at this new space age. And now new space is very different to old space, where new space is, we're trying to make space more hip, but also try out new ideas, because we don't want space to be boxed inside old values and limiting ideas of what it can be or who it can be open to. The more space is open to humanity, the more ideas we can try, fail, and then succeed at. And then it will help us evolve and develop technologies or concepts that can help everyone. And yeah, I'm really excited about that. And then I realized, well, this is a great fit for my eVTOL. So I no longer call it a flying car. People look at me like I'm saying chitty chitty bang bang. So I don't do that anymore. I learned all the correct terminology to use, but basically that the helicopter on Mars gives me hope that something like this will be valuable for both on planet, on this Earth, and also in space. And yeah, so I've just been immersed in this. I've literally been spaced out. I'm really excited about everything. I'm really excited about this new period of space exploration, so many young people are getting involved as well. So I was recently made a STEM ambassador, and I see why the governments around the world are trying to encourage more young people to get involved in STEM careers, because these STEM careers do make up the space industry. That's where our scientists and technologists and engineers and mathematicians come from, to formulate these ideas and turn them into a reality. But we also need the creatives and the visionaries. There's such thing as space art. There's such thing as space medicine. I mean, how many people would know that? It's just so interesting. I wish I could tell you so much, but I would love for you to please do check out the podcast if you can. My most recent interviews were with NASA scientists, so Chief Scientist Jim Green and Chief Associate Scientist Tara Rutley, for microgravity, and they were telling me how they were really excited about searching for life on Mars. That is the question that they are currently trying to answer. Tara Rutley deals with a lot of not issues, a lot of topics around microgravity. So what happens to the body in microgravity? She works with a lot of astronauts. She created the exercise bike that they use on the ISS. And astronauts there have to use it for at least 2 hours a day to make sure that their bodies are healthy and functioning, because in microgravity, your body deteriorates somewhat because you're not using those same muscles in the same way. So yeah, gosh, so much. Where do I start? There's so much. I'm currently still doing that, and I'm presenting Spaced Out. I'm also presenting another TV show that's space related that I can't really talk about. And my mission is to elevate humanity through my space endeavors. One of the things that I am part of is Frank White's overview effect roundtable. So if you know about the overview effect, that is the thing that resonated with me the most. When astronauts are in orbit and they look back down on this beautiful green-blue marble that is Earth, they realize then, and also with their collaborations and partnerships with fellow colleagues from around the world at the ISS, that the world is one. The world is one. Everyone is connected. It's one ecosystem. Humanity needs to unite to help one another, because there is no life on any other planet that we know of. And that's why it's so important to protect this planet and to respect one another, because we come from the same place in this universe. And that's something that I've been really lucky to experience on Earth through my adventures and explorations, but also now taking to the next level, bringing it into the space industry and helping people through being part of these and advocating for these developments in technology that will help humanity. And I feel that part of the reason why we're going to space is to figure out, to go home, and to also figure out how to get to the stars. Because essentially, like Carl Sagan said, we are all made of star stuff. And that is the basis of my article, which is coming out. How we're related, how the same element from the Big Bang and that is formed in the stars, that creates these stars, is essentially within us, within our bodies, within our hands, within the plants and the animals and everything that is on this earth, in this solar system. It's all made of the same elements. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. That was fantastic. I'm going to open the floor to some questions. If I may, though, I'd like to start off first of all, though. Could you just tell us a bit more about the Moon competition? What are the next stages, and how many sort of hoops do you have to jump through before you hopefully get selected to be one of a few chosen to go on that mission?
Yes. So we have to wait to be selected for an interview, and then there'll be a second interview, and then there'll be a medical test, and that's it. So the flight will be in 2023, and I remember when I first posted that I got through, I couldn't find anyone else who had. So I think they must have shortlisted all the candidates because about 1 million people applied. I didn't expect to get through, but it was interesting because the other people who also got through were from very creative backgrounds. Some of them were already engineers within space agencies. So I think they're looking for a different role within the crew. So each crew would play a different role, but also the reason why I think one of the most important things about this mission is they want to bring people together. They want people to work with each other, to collaborate. So they don't want this to be like a cutthroat competition. The whole idea of it is to unite and to work together. So we are, the ones that I know of who have passed, we are supporting one another. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions from the floor? Terry first, and then Brian, and then Sarah.
Oh,
Terry, you're on mute. That's it.
So it's not only young people who are interested in space, some of us oldies are interested as well. And I happen to be very much interested in space, and I was very interested in the hover that they flew from Mars. Now, some time ago, I actually decided I would become involved in a sense. And I don't suppose you can see that, but I actually have on my phone.
I can't see it.
Yeah, we can make it out, Terry.
It's an app from NASA,
Oh, wow.
and the app gives you a daily briefing of everything that's going on with the do with space.
I have that app too. My NASA. Yeah.
Yeah, similar. So that's why I was most interested this evening to hear what you have to say. There's, you know, it's a very big subject. And the morning that they flew the hover helicopter, you might say, which had 2 sets of blades on it.
Curiosity, yes.
Yeah. I was looking at it on my phone as it was taking place.
I was also watching it. I was watching the NASA scientists work together in the room, sending the commands and then waiting for the images to come back and the video to come back and celebrating its success. I got really excited because imagine now what we can do. We can just keep developing new technologies and then furthering our exploration of other planets, not just Mars. So we're starting with Mars, but scientists eventually want to send spacecrafts to Europa. And that's like a water world, you know, mostly composed of water, and so many other places. So it's just really exciting for me to see what we can find out there. It just excites me so much.
Well,
Brian?
thank you for your
Yeah,
talk.
thank you very much, Sarah. I was fortunate to be in Houston a few years ago now, and to walk through all the training procedures for the astronauts and that. And one doesn't realize how demanding it is really until you're in that position, and all the models that they create to put them in the right atmosphere. But more to the point now is, I appreciate all the work you're doing, but how do you manage to exist? Are you a journalist that therefore that is your bread and butter, if you like?
Yeah.
And this is something which is going to take over, hopefully, for you and for the rest of us in the near future. But for the meantime, you are primarily a journalist centered on space exploration.
I would call myself now a communicator because essentially it's the same thing. I'm communicating messages, I'm telling stories, I'm communicating information. And that's how the space industry understands what I do and makes sense of it. I've been told by the NASA scientists that they need more people who are content creators who appeal to a lot of younger people and younger women, because this generation are going to become the future space leaders, and they are going to lead humanity forward into the next space age. And we need to get them excited. We need to get them excited. So we need to send the right message. We need to create the right messages. Then we need to communicate the right messages, and we need the right role models to do that. But also we need to diversify and expand who those role models are, what those industries are, and in what ways we can achieve that. Because if we stay limited, then we only reach the same people. So yes, I see myself as a communicator within the space industry, as a journalist and TV presenter, but I also see myself preparing to explore for space one day, however that may be, wherever that may be, whenever that may be. I have no idea yet.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sarah Van Cletus. So Sarah.
Hello, Sarah.
Hello.
Very interested to hear your talk. Thank you very much. And I wish you every success. It sounds a wonderful undertaking. I was interested in the extent to which it's an international space station, and how I'm with you with all the ideas of, we've all got to work together and it's one world. Is it truly international now, or does it involve China, for instance, which I know does a lot of space research? But so is it international with China?
It is very international, and it's growing more now than ever before. It's still very US centric, because that's where a lot of the space activities happen. That's where the history is. Obviously, it's in Russia, it's in China. China are planning to build their own space station. It's in Japan, it's in the UAE, it's in Saudi. How many people know there are Saudi astronauts? So it's becoming more and more international as more nations are preparing for space activities. And the reason why is because space is going to be, well, it's currently $1 trillion industry, but it's going to be a $quadrillion industry in the future. And NASA have invested, what they've noticed from their investments, that the returns have been threefold. So it's very lucrative to invest in space ventures and space activities, as long as it has a commercial link to it. So not only is it profitable, but it's also beneficial for humanity.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Cletus.
Really international.
Oh, hello, Sarah, and hello, everyone, because I never said hello when I came in. Very, very exciting, and thank you for talking to us on that. But you kept mentioning climate change, climate change, climate change, climate change.
Yeah.
Now, what are the scientists doing about it to actually let it filter to particularly to world leaders to actually understand that this is real? And two, when you fire up to space, the amount of oil you consume, do you actually consider it in terms of climate change?
Such amazing questions. So that first question that you asked, I asked ESA, there was a mission manager, I asked ESA experts, and I did an entire episode on climate change from space. One of them was responsible for the satellites that gathered the data. The other one was responsible for facilitating this data and sending it to the right departments. And I asked that same question, and they didn't have, the answer was quite vague. They're working on it. I don't know how, but they're trying to solve ways they can combat climate change. And that's something that you would need to ask the scientists, not me, because I don't know what they're doing. And they haven't shared that with me yet. In terms of the second question, there are a lot of companies working on sustainable fuel for rockets. For example, SpaceX is planning to make the rockets reusable, and that's one way of making it sustainable. And then my recent guest, Daniel Faber, he's the CEO of Orbit Fab, and he's also the CEO of Deep Space Industries, sorry. So he focuses on space mining. He's planning to mine asteroids, but to fund that venture of his, he's planning to launch the first gas station in space in the next 2 months. And I asked him about the fuel. I said, what kind of fuel will you be using to refuel these satellites? And he said, well, we're going to be using hydrogen and xenon. Excuse me. So, excuse me. So I'm with you on that. And there are a lot of companies. There's a company in the Philippines by a very young pioneer named Dexter Banyo, who's my very, very first ever guest. Before it became a podcast. He's working to create sustainable fuel. There are people doing all sorts of sustainable green engineering to see how they can power rockets using sustainable fuel. Yeah, so it's a great question. It's very necessary. And I believe the future will be very sustainable because fossil fuels will eventually run out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Maria, I think you've got a quick question there.
I do, and to be honest, I am amazed by your courage to get on a space travel vehicle and spend some time in space and so on. And I admire people who are willing to, you know, take the chance of getting on a space shuttle and explore the world. But my question really has to do, and it's like a segue probably from Cletus's question. We are all in a huge pandemic right now, and there are wars and there's infighting and so on and so forth, and yet we're still thinking of going out there and trying to colonize another planet. Now, shouldn't we clean our backyard first before we go out in space and try to colonize, or, you know? So just food for thought. That's all.
Great question. And do you know how many times I've asked that question myself? So I'm so glad that you brought that up. And yeah, we should. And that's the thing. And that's why people are trying to develop space tourism, because for us to clean up our backyards, we need to have the empathy. We need to instill that humanity within us. And if we go to space and experience the overview effect and realize, oh wow, there's only one Earth and humanity lives on this Earth, we need to work together and unite for these goals. We need to protect the planet. We need to clean up our waste and our wars and the plastics in the oceans, and we need to solve the pandemic and make sure that it doesn't happen again. So that is why space tourism is going to be very important for expanding our consciousness on Earth. So then we have it in our hearts and minds and in our souls, we have it embedded in our souls to be able to solve those problems on Earth.
Thank you. Yeah, this is, you know, the biggest question of all. Are we ready to fly into space before we set our planet in order with our things?
We need to be mentally in the right place before we can solve our problems. And sometimes experiences like spaceflight and experiences like the overview effect might help. You know, it certainly has done with the astronauts, and that's what makes them work collaboratively. That's what makes nations on space endeavors and activities work collaboratively to develop these technologies and develop and further humanity. I mean, if we didn't have if they didn't develop the iPhone or the GPS, how do you think that life would be without it?
Oh, I don't know.
Well,
I'm trying to think what it was before having a GPS. And
well, that's exactly.
Paper maps and missing turns and stuff like that. Oh yeah, I know.
Exactly. All of that was developed in the space industry. I had no idea. Like yourself, I had no idea until I started looking into it. Until I stepped into the industry, I was blown away at how relevant it is to the very work that I was doing on Earth and the very work that you guys are all doing now.
The space industry has got a lot to help us with, because I know things like Teflon frying pans, etc. for technology using that was developed in the space industry. So there's been a lot of things which space exploration has helped us with, and hopefully it will do in the future. I'm just looking around to see if there's any more questions, and I can't see any more. So could I ask George to please give the vote of thanks?
Certainly, with pleasure. Your last remark about the Teflon frying pan, I could make one of those stick anyhow. But no doubt there's a lot of other benefits that have come. What fascinating talk. It makes us all think a lot, and that must be a good thing, especially under present circumstances. And what I think about it a lot is the speed of change. It's not long ago. Well, I can remember. Probably not many of you can, but I can remember when you couldn't fly across the Atlantic in one go. You stopped in Greenland or the Azores on the way. Now they're talking, I think you can fly to Australia in one go. And that's in a lifetime. I just feel that like the trip to the moon, there was a long hesitation after the first visit to the moon. But since then, things are hotting up and it's fascinating to hear. And I'm just intrigued by the speed of the development and also the fact that it's, as you have said, you've introduced non-scientists into the thing as well as the science only, because the rest of them, we need both sort of both approaches to it. I'll stop waffling on now, Darren. Thank you very much indeed for that thought-provoking talk. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.